Hello and welcome to the Wee Ood podcast, an unofficial Doctor Who podcast. My name is Cameron. I'm here with my co-host Ben. How are you doing today, Ben?
I'm doing pretty good, as always.
Today we're going to be talking about the first serial of episode 8, which is Terror of the Autons. It was broadcast the 2nd of January in 1971, and the last broadcast was on the 23rd of January of 1971. To talk about the credits, it was written by Robert Holmes, which should make sense because he wrote Spearhead from Space. So this is kind of in some ways, this is a sequel to Spearhead from Space, just because it's a four-parter. It's the Autons again in the nesting. Did you catch in the credits who directed this episode, Ben?
Barry Letts, right?
Barry Letts directed it, but he's not credited. In the credits, he's not shown because he probably has to do with since he's the producer of the show, he probably couldn't also take director credit. So he did direct it, but he's not credited for it. So this in the credits, I did look in the credits, it's just no director, which of course makes sense because, like we talked about previously, he has the history of having directed Enemy of the World, and he will go on to direct more. And then Dudley Simpson does the score for this episode, and you can tell because the score banging, Ben. Like, I don't know if you want to get into it because we'll get into it more when we're actually talking about the episode. But my God, I loved the Dudley Simpson score in this episode.
Oh yeah, the score was great.
And then just to get into some of the facts about this episode, the fun facts. This was basically Terrence Dicks and Barry Letts were like, oh, the Doctor needs somebody that's an intellectual equal. So they needed his own Moriarty. And then Terrence Dicks came up with the name The Master. Who thought that would be a good, menacing, evil name for a character. What do you think of the name of the Master as the Doctor's rival?
I think it's pretty perfect. If it was like random example, the monk, not really threatening, but the master really denotes a level of power and respect, makes him definitely on equal footing.
He's not like the dentist.
Yeah, no.
The Doctor and the dentist. This is a serial that has many of first-time actors. One that I found interesting is Captain Mike Gates. This is his first episode, and it was the actor of Richard Franklin, or it was going to be Ian Mater. But Ian Mater couldn't do it because he thought it was just a one-off job, but it was a reoccurring role, so he couldn't commit to it. But he'll later on become a companion. Harry Sullivan, of course. Another one I found interesting, if we're going the cast-wise, Ben, did Rex Farrell look at all familiar to you?
I thought he did a little bit.
So he's played by Michael Wisher, who will go on to play Davros. But he was in last season. He played the TV anchor announcer in Ambassadors of Death.
Oh yeah.
He had a beard, so this one he doesn't have the beard, so he doesn't look. Basically, you don't recognize him, but we will see him later as Davros, of course.
Does Davros appear during the Third Doctor's era?
No, he's the first season of the Fourth Doctor.
Gotcha.
Oh, another actor that might be familiar to you. There is an actor called Royce Stewart. He played Toberman in Tomb of the Cybermen. He plays a pretty similar character in this. He plays the muscle in the circus.
Yeah.
Basically, yeah, it's kind of disappointing because he doesn't play that different of a character in this. I guess it's a little bit better because he's not a slave.
No, he's just the
muscle.
circus muscle, which, I don't know, weird and bad.
John Pertwee said this was one of his favorite and one of the best he ever did in the series. So, Ben, I think that's going to be it for the fun facts. What did you think of Terror of the Autons?
Overall, it was pretty good. I mean, it's hard to follow Inferno. Pretty solid. I think it's not quite as good as Spearhead. You know, the last one that had the Autons in them, but very solid. A lot of interesting new characters. Or, I mean, I guess the two big ones, at least.
Yeah, like the pretty big introductions that we get are a new companion in this, which is Joe Grant, played by Katie Manning, and then we also get, of course, the Master, played by Roger Delgado. And then a third one is we get Mike Yates, which is a good addition to the unit family. Kind of rounds it out that we have Benton, we have Mike Yates, and we have the Brigadier as the leader. But yeah, I would agree with you. I don't think it's very good. It's just I would rate it as just good. It's not as good, of course, as Inferno. It's not even as good as Spearhead. I would say. I think Spearhead is a little bit tighter as of a story. In this story, doesn't use the Autons as well. The mannequins coming out. I don't think that they're not able to top that in Terror of the Autons.
Yeah.
But still, like Robert Holmes was able to write a very good four-part story again using the Autons. We'll talk about it, of course, but he uses plastic again in inventive ways that you're like, oh, that's cool, that's clever.
Yeah.
So I have seen this story before. I got the DVD when I was a kid. It was one of the early on ones that I watched in terms of John Pertwee. Actually, this made me realize this is the only Roger Delgado Master story that I've seen, so I'm very excited to watch more of them. But I watched it as a kid. I remember liking it. It was never one that I didn't love it as a kid. Like it wasn't one that I watched multiple times.
Really?
But definitely, rewatching it now, there was a couple of moments that really stood out to me, of course. The introduction of Katie Manning, of Joe Grant, of course, and the introduction of the Master coming out in the carnival, of course. And then the Time Lord coming down.
Yep.
Not coming down, but like the Time Lord appearing.
Just hopping into the sky and levitating over her.
Which we're definitely going to have to talk about. And then the doll, of course. Who could forget the doll? You're gonna always remember the doll for this story.
I wish I could forget it.
And then the end bit, I remembered a lot of like the quarry and then fighting the yellow suit Autons. But it was fun to revisit this story because there was those moments. I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that. But then there was other moments I'm like, yeah, I forgot what was happening during this section. But I think that this is definitely a good introduction to the Master.
Mm-hmm.
I think to start the conversation off, let's just start with talking about the Master. What did you think of the Master for his first story, Ben?
I think he was pretty great. Definitely, the focus is definitely more on him rather than the Nestine and the Autons, which is totally fine. I think, yeah, the Doctor has been kind of wanting a kind of Moriarty-like foil, someone who can truly match his wit and intelligence, not just like a dinosaur or something, but a true rival, I think, will be of great benefit.
Which it works for Pertwee's Doctor in particular, because like we talked about, like he is the in control Doctor. Giving him an equal really helps with his Doctor in a lot of not a lot of these stories that I don't know, but like it helps even out his Doctor in a way. I do wish that we got a little bit more in this story of the Doctor and the Master talking to each other.
Yeah, there's really just like the one scene in episode 4.
And that one scene in episode 4 is great. I love their chemistry right off the bat. That's like something I want to bring up is that like I love that we don't have to establish the Doctor having to find out about this new person. It's just nope, the Doctor already knows him. The Time Lords come down and they're just like, yeah, the Master. He's like, oh no, not that guy again.
Oh yeah, you totally buy that they've been going at it for years, and now he's back with a newfound determination to kill the Doctor once and for all, but also kind of toy with him, really prove his superiority.
And I thought that was a really great way to have the Master stuck on Earth, is having the Doctor trying to use his tires to get his tires to work again. I think that is a clever way to say like, oh yeah, the Master's going to be coming back, you know, because he's going to be stuck on Earth too. And the Doctor's not even doing that on purpose. It was more like, oh no, he was doing it because, oh yeah, I need to fix my TARDIS and this is a way that I can do it. Which also, his plan, right? That if he could get that to work, he would just let the Master just stay on Earth and just get into shit.
I guess, yeah.
That does not sound like a good plan, Doctor. But he's Roger Delgado is such, he plays the role so great. You can just tell that he just radiates pure evil.
Yeah. I wish I remember the line. I wish I wrote it down. Both the Doctor and the Master are like talking about each other's weakness. Like the Doctor says, "Oh, his ego is his weakness." Do you remember what the Master said the Doctor's weakness is?
I do not at the moment.
I forget. I should have wrote that down.
Roger, like a couple other masters, like they play it kind of more campy.
I could definitely see other people doing that character, but way more over the top. I think whatever he's doing right now is pretty perfect.
He's treating it kind of like Shakespeare in a way. Like he's playing this so fucking straight.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just he is definitely one of the standouts of this story. Another standout I think we have to talk about is Katie Manning as Joe Grant. What did you think of Joe Grant? First impressions, man.
I have a lot to say about Joe. In general, I'm not 100% impressed with her yet.
What?
You know, she's kind of plucky and adventurous. I like that. I don't know. To me, a lot of it, she seems just like a kid, and I'm kind of over, I guess, dumb kids. I'm not that strongly against her, but I don't think it was a great first impression. I think the Brigadier said it best that Joe is someone to pass the Doctor their test tubes and tell them how brilliant they are. And that pretty much, at first glance, seems like what she mostly is. And I appreciate that they're acknowledging that and how overqualified Liz was for that position. And now they've picked out someone that is a little bit better of like a, I don't want to say cheerleader, but like I feel like I'm being really harsh. What are your thoughts?
I love Joe, and I love this first out of the gate impression of her, of just her, just that moment. I've watched that clip so many times on YouTube of just her coming into the Doctor, doing his experiment, and using the fire extinguisher to ruin the experiment. And the Doctor's just response just being like, "Oh God, not you."
Yeah.
Anyway, I need a new assistant, but not you.
That's kind of how I feel right now.
And I love, like, I think that her and Pertwee have such a great dynamic that I thought was missing with Lisha. They were just both scientists, and Kate Shaw was just a smart scientist. And I think that it's so great that you have a character like Joe Grant that kind of can make a mistake, can be ambitious, and go against what the Doctor is telling her to do because she is gonna be like, "Oh no, I'm gonna do that. I know I want to do that. I'm gonna do that." And the Doctor's gonna be like, "Oh God," and then you're gonna have to save her. Like there's something great about that.
Yeah, I see it.
There is also that like that moment in like part, I think it's part 2 when she saves the Doctor in the carnival. It's like Liz Shaw never did anything like that in the season 7. Never saved the Doctor from a scenario.
No.
And like I think that Katie plays her so well that it is just the adorable. She's smart, but she's not, like, she's kind of dim-witted in some ways. And again, she just has that plucky personality that she just wants to help the Doctor, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Maybe I was being harsh. If I think of her more as a supporting character for the Doctor, and like I'm coming around.
We'll see it maybe by the end of the season. Your thoughts will change because, of course, I do have a history with Joe Grant.
Yeah. I have no context. This is whatever she does in this episode is all I know of her.
So do we have to talk about Mike Yates? Do you have any opinions on Captain Mike Yates so far?
I couldn't tell you who that is. Is that the guy that is like talking with Joe a bunch?
Yeah. He's the new unit guy that's there.
Yeah, he's fine. I got no real opinion on it.
I'll send you a picture. Like he's this guy, man.
It's cute that he just wants to make her hot chocolate.
Like, yeah, it's the Mike Yates and Benton are both always just they're there. They're gonna help out, but they're never gonna add too much to the conversation, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So where to go next, Ben? Because we still have the Autons to talk about. We've seen our first Time Lord that's not the Master, of course. for the first time since the War Games.
Yeah.
So what did you think of this? I don't even know what you call him, like this English gentleman Time Lord.
I don't know. I looked it up. Apparently, that isn't just a random one. That is, he was in the War Games.
Really? Interesting. I did not know that. That was
He was one of the 3 guys.
interesting.
According to the
I never
wiki,
knew that. Cool.
like one of the 3 guys that sentences the Doctor to exile.
And I think it's a good use of the Time Lords that it's like he's kind of acting
Oh, it's not even the same actor. Maybe I'm wrong. Well, the wiki is wrong at least, maybe. But yeah, he's a interesting character.
like it still gives off that like we don't know too much about the society and how much their godlike powers are like.
We know they have classes,
Yeah,
and that the Master and the Doctor both took classes on Gallifrey.
which we'll get further into that in the new series. But no, it's a fun little moment just to be like, oh yeah, the Time Lords are there, and
They're keeping an eye on the Doctor.
it was probably exciting back in the day to be like, oh my god, we're getting more information about the Doctor's race.
Yeah, it's still a very interesting idea that we still know very little about. Although I believe we'll come to know a lot about it, right?
What?
About like the Doctor's background in Gallifrey and the Time Lords
A decent amount. A decent amount.
later on in the classic series.
And then in the new series. So Ben, I think it's time. Let's talk about the fucking doll. What the like? It's evil looking, but it's also like you could tell it's racist. But like I don't know what particularly race it's racist to, but it's just like,
Yeah, no, it's racist in some way.
It's just radiates racism and like it is racism and evil. like
I mean, it's supposed to be like it's given like African cannibal vibes.
no idea. It's just fucking it's racist and it's does not hold up in 2023.
It is horrific. But it's kind of cool the scenes where it like pretty kind of seamlessly transitions from the object to green screen, somebody in a costume walking around.
Which is something we have to talk about is that like
This had a lot of green screen.
we got a lot of so Ben, it's color separation overlay. So color separation overlay, they use a shit ton in the classic Who, especially this period.
Yeah. They toyed with it in Ambassadors, but they have like whole sets that are just like backgrounds. Like up on the tower.
Barry Letts saw this technology and said, I need more. I need to use this. He fell in love with it, Ben. And now there's some things that like you were saying with the doll that you're like, oh my god, that does not look that bad. And then there's other moments where you're like, Jesus Christ, this looks terrible. Even like the Time Lord, like we were talking about earlier, like that Time Lord special effect didn't look the worst.
I thought when I first watched it that like the camera was just zooming in on the guy. But I just looked at it again. I think it's supposed to be him coming towards the Doctor.
Yeah.
But really it is just the camera zooming in. Which that's what it looks like. But yeah, kind of impressive.
But then like there's moments where they use it when they like driving and you see that like they're using CSO to mimic that they're driving. And there's a bunch of other things that they use CSO for. They abuse it in this story. Yeah, and it varies in terms of quality. Before we move on from the doll, do we have anything else to talk about with the doll?
Let's move on from the doll as quickly as possible.
Well, like it is kind of like you could imagine children back in the day would have been creeped out by it.
Oh yeah, 100%. What did you think of the new designs of the Autons?
Yeah, I was gonna mention that. So like the Autons in this story, the face is definitely much more like, well, how would you describe it? Like it's definitely much more. It looks less like a mask in this story.
Yeah, it's not like a rubber mask with eye holes. It's like a full plastic helmet,
Yeah.
which in some ways makes it look better, but also makes it look less creepy.
Yeah.
Like in Spearhead, I think they're a lot more creepy looking, where like they're like looking up so that they can see through the tiny eye holes, and they have like the shaped eyes, and they like look like clammy. They look good, but they're a little bit less intense.
Yeah, I would agree that it's kind of like it's the problem of not the problem, but it's definitely the effect of they made it look better, but kind of making it look better made it kind of look less scary and weird looking and weird more like
Yeah.
it gave it that like otherworldly type of like what the like I don't even know how to describe it. It lost some of its factor of just creepiness.
Yeah, now it's not something that could be in the shop window. Now it's like just a generic monster.
So now that we're talking about the Autons, let's just fully talk about the Autons and the nesting. So like you mentioned previously, it's not like it's the main thing like we saw previously in Spearhead.
Yeah.
Kind of the Master's more taking central stage in this story. So we're kind of getting more Master and less Autons, which kind of makes sense because again, it's a four-potter. You can't have like the Autons like giving the Autons another like a chaining like in Spearhead, giving them a voice with the master, so then they kind of would like communicate and they would fight. It's kind of with four pods, you kind of just need the master is in charge and he's working with the nesting.
I don't like that they gave him a voice too. Like a Daleki voice.
Yeah, I wrote that down as well. That the voice is really weird, and they when they bring him back in the new series, they do not have a voice. Well, kind of, but they don't have a voice. The Autons do not have a voice in the first time they brought them back.
I think it's better that they're just like mindless, kind of like Terminator. I'm gonna get you, rather than making them kind of more independent beings that are just doing what the master says.
Or they can talk at they're mimicking somebody, and but when I'm in Spearhead when they mimic like the general.
Yeah.
It's like that works because it's like, oh yeah, they're mimicking like a human being. It's like I mean, it would make sense if like the cops spoke in this story, but it kind of was weird when like in part 4 when the dandelion plastic Autons are like the yellow suit Autons are speaking to Rex Fowl. It's kind of like this is wrong. They're supposed to be just obedience like plastic slaves.
Yeah.
But some of the uses of plastic in this is of course the dandelions, which is it's a cool idea of having this thing that you give out for free be actually evil.
Yeah. I think it's a great idea. I think the scene where Joe's attacked by the flower and she has like the thing over her mouth is genuinely terrifying, especially with the music. And like the doctor is frantically trying to rip it off her face.
And again, it's using that mundanity of like of course everyone has seen plastic flowers before, and like
Mhm.
and then you can imagine a kid would see a plastic flower and be like, oh my god, that's scary, that's gonna kill me.
Yeah, the phone cord was less good.
See, I like the phone cord as a cliffhanger, which we'll talk about when we get to the cliffhangers. I like it as a cliffhanger, and I love John's face during that.
John has some good faces.
And I like having it be like triggered by the noise in the like the other line. But like I can understand what you're coming from. But I kind of like it that it is another way of using the mundanity and making it scary. And then of course we have the doll, which we have to stop talking about the doll.
What about the black chair that old guy sits in?
It's definitely I remembered that as a kid. Like that was one that stuck on my memory. But like I think it's fine. Like what did you think of it?
It's not as commonplace, but it still I think was a effective, scary thing.
Sad that we don't get more of the Autons past this. This is the last appearance in the classic series.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm surprised.
They were gonna come back, but then that season got canceled, so we never got them.
In like season 27?
Season 23. Because what the season before they turned it into Trial of the Time Lords.
Ah.
I forget. Do they give a reason how the master shrunk the scientist into his lunchbox, or does he just shrink them?
It's his gun thing.
But do they ever? Do they give an? They don't give a name for that.
I mean, I can look on the wiki, but I don't think they say anything in the episode.
Okay. Because we're gonna, of course, we're just not to give you a little bit of spoilers, man. We're gonna see more of it. That's a very iconic thing that the master has, which I'm kind of having a blank at the moment, Benno, what the actual name of the fucking thing is.
His tissue compression eliminator.
Yes, of course we're going to see more of the tissue compression eliminator. So look forward to that. So this is the first appearance of it, but it's not named
Why didn't he just kill him though?
because it's kind of more scary and it's like it works. It works for imagine for like kid audiences that like it would be weird if this like you can't have your like evil character constantly be breaking people's necks. Like
I guess that's true.
it works that it's like, oh yeah, he's shrunk. But also like imagining how terrifying that guy like that poor guy, it's like he has to live his life like that, unless the doctor somehow fixes him later on. But like he's just like he comes imagine like that wife getting that phone call of just like we have your husband, but he's like 3 inches tall.
He's fine. He's just tiny.
Which is that it's a good reveal in like I think it's part one that like the doctor is like where is he and then the doctor's like he's in there and they open it, it's like oh god. What else to talk about in Terror of the Autons, Ben? Do you have anything any notes, anything that you want to talk about?
Before we do like the cliffhangers, I have a couple lines and a couple thoughts. Some lines I thought were pretty good. They kind of really characterize the doctor pretty well. In episode 2, he's talking with the circus leader. He says, "Nonsense. Gentlemen never talk about anything else other than money." I thought that was a notable line. Kind of shows his disdain for certain aspects of human civilization, I suppose. I think at the beginning of episode 3, where the doctor is just bored by the brigadier and his plan, and it's like, "Oh, you still need me? Oh, are you done now?" I thought that was a pretty funny scene.
So in this serial, something that bugged me is that the doctor has to tell the brigadier to check the plastic factories. Like we don't already know that the plastic factories is gonna be. We gotta check them all around this area.
Oh yeah, the brigadier should know that.
Like the doctor just shouldn't have to tell you this. And like a moment that stood out to me was the when the doctor cracks the safe in the plastic factory and it's just a surprise Auton there that
Yeah.
just shoots them. That moment I thought was great.
Like, of course, the master knew the doctor's curiosity would get the better of him.
But it's not like it's a plastic thing that's gonna kill him. It's just a full-on Auton.
Just sitting in there. Another line I thought was really good in episode 3 when the doctor is testing out the master's dematerialization circuit, and it obviously doesn't work because it's a Mark II and he needs a Mark 1. He comes out and Joe is telling him off and he says, "What's wrong with being childish? I like being childish."
Very reminiscent of a upcoming in the first episode of Tom Baker. There's a line that's about being childish that I'm not going to spoil, but that just made me think of that.
Mm-hmm. It feels like a very doctor thing to say. Like each doctor is kind of childish in their own way.
Oh yeah,
Even right at the beginning, the doctor sabotages his own fluid link just so he can go see the city.
but he also has that like childish, like even from the beginning, he has that childish like sense of like I need to see things. Shrouded in particular, I think has that like very much like he is a child.
Yeah, he has a lot of childlike wonder and curiosity.
Yeah, and like and then sometimes childlike temper and patience. But then like just John has less of that, but he has moments of childishness.
And then another one, the brigadier at the beginning of episode 4 is saving the doctor from the phone that's trying to strangle him. And he's like, "Oh, are you all right?" And then just has to quip, I'm afraid I cut your connection. And the doctor looks up at him and is like, really, dude?
It's a wonderful moment.
Yeah, they got a pretty good relationship. And then at the very end, the master and the doctor, side by side, defeat the Nestine after the master realizes he didn't take into account that the Nestine wouldn't be discriminate and that he's fucked too. So I think them working together.
Which is definitely one of the weak
Really?
I find that moment to be one of the weak points of the story. Because I was like the master it took just the doctor saying that one sentence to think about like they can't distinguish between us and you. It's like it just that's all it took for the master to be like, oh shit, I fucked up.
I buy the master being so focused on the doctor being absorbed by his own ego and just like not taking that into account.
Oh yeah.
But it is a little bit of a on a dime. One more thing. Repeatedly throughout, especially the '60s show, I can think of maybe 3 to 5 moments where the doctor has shown himself to be proficient in hypnosis and breaking people out of hypnosis. Like in The War Machines, he breaks Dodo out of the hypnosis that she's put under. So it makes sense now that he has experience with that because clearly this is not his first encounter with the master and helping the people that he's put under his spell.
Oh yeah, and like we'll get more into the Time Lords and being able to manipulate humans' minds later on in the series. All right, Ben, I think it's now time for cliffhangers. So to start off part one's cliffhangers, Joe gets hypnotized and is gonna blow them all up.
Yeah.
It's a fine cliffhanger. It's like you know by next week that it's gonna be solved pretty easily.
I like that when she's hypnotized, she like is able to take out one of the unit guys with like one punch.
Part two's cliffhanger is the police officer that saves the doctor and Joe from the connies. Is it connies or is it just like carnival folk? I'm just gonna say carnival folk. They save them from the carnival folk that's being the shit out of the doctor, but they turn out to be an Auton.
Yeah, the doctor rips off their mask to reveal the Auton. I think that's probably the best one.
Oh yeah. There's definitely a moment that I wish that we saw like some of like the face of just like the regular actor, and then we got the reveal of the mask thing. They showed the Auton with the mask first, and that really doesn't look good.
Yeah.
If they could have done the mask reveal, I think a little bit better.
They do a lot of mask reveals in this.
Oh yeah. Well, the master is a master of disguise, Ben. So get ready for more of that.
Is he?
Did you not get that from the story? He has 2 times that he changed his appearance because he's a master of disguise, man.
I mean, I understood that he did that. I didn't automatically assume that he's a master of disguise.
Oh yeah. Get ready, Ben.
There's only one master of disguise in my book.
And then part three's cliffhanger is the master says goodbye over the phone and then strangles the doctor with a telephone cable, which we already talked about. Which I like, I think, more than you do.
I mean, it's fine. He makes a good face. Very reminiscent of like being attacked by like the cephalopod Nestine and Spearhead.
Oh yeah, it's that same face of just But yeah, I think we can both agree that part two is the king of the cliffhangers in the serial.
Yep. And at the end of episode 4, he says, "Well, Joe, I'm rather looking forward to future confrontations with the master."
And of course, you have that great reveal that when they shoot the master, that no, it actually wasn't the master; it was Rex, and that the master is still out there. Well, he's not still out there. He's on the bus. He's driving right towards you, Doctor. So you better get out of the fucking way.
Real quick, off topic.
Yes.
I'm astonished. They keep like teasing us. We still haven't seen the inside of the TARDIS. We could have seen the inside of the Doctor's TARDIS. We could have saw the inside of the Master's TARDIS. We saw neither.
I think it's next week. I think next week is when we get the new TARDIS. Interior. So now that the cliffhangers is on, I think it's time, Ben, to go over the rankings. Terry the Autons, this was kind of one of those stories that has been remained consistent. In the 2023 poll, it was number 9. And then in 2014 and 2009, it was number 8. And then back in 1998, it was much more loved, and it was number 6 space. Of course, we don't have that much to compare it to, but do you understand why maybe it would rank in the top 10 of Pertwee's stories?
Yeah. Yeah, I understand that. It's pretty good.
I think that, like, by the end of the day, I think 9 is going to be a very similar spot of where I'm probably going to wind up putting it.
Yeah. It's probably a low top 10.
Yeah, it's not. Again, it's good. It's not. It's better than okay. It's better than the.
I like it more than Silurians and Ambassadors.
Yeah, it's better than those 2 stories that we watched so far. But yeah, so now when we go to our ratings of the story, what would you give it, Ben?
Maybe like a 77, 78.
You're going really macro. I'm just gonna be the opposite of you, Ben. I'm gonna go a good old round number 8. I think that this is just a solid 8 story. It doesn't do that much wrong, but I don't think it does too many things that gives it that, like, pushes it over to like an 8.5 or a 10. It's a solid 8 story that, like, I could imagine myself rewatching, but I'm not gonna like be eager to rewatch it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I would rewatch Spearhead before this.
Yeah.
Most times. But it's still good. If I was really in the mood for the Master, maybe.
So yeah, I think that's gonna be all for this week. Do you have any closing last thoughts, Ben?
Yeah, it was very good. I'm looking forward to having a whole season of the Master.
I'm bumming that you got that spoiled, that it's gonna be consistent.
Yeah, I think I also this is kind of off topic, but the last couple stories were really dark and serious, and this one I thought was a little bit lighter, and I appreciated that.
Yeah, I think this season overall is going to be a little bit lighter compared to season 7. So, join us next week. We're going to be watching. Since again we're going to be doing this in order, so next week is going to be The Mind of Evil.
Yes.
So come back and we'll be talking about that story. So yeah, thank you so much for listening, and I hope you please like, subscribe, share. Give us a review on a podcast. Remember, this podcast will be found on any of your favorite podcast services. Please watch us on YouTube, watch us on TikTok and Instagram Rails. Thank you so much, and I hope you have a good rest of your day.
Have a good night, everybody.